Hello, class. I am Ryan, and the first thing I want to ask before we get into this speech is, have you ever been in virtual reality before? Did you like it? What experiences did you have? And just reflect on that as I speak about some of the things today. If you haven't, just try to think about, what you think about it, what judgments you have, what it might be like, just things like that. So in my speech today, I'm going to be talking about virtual reality and the effects it's had on the medical industry. Virtual reality treatment is being described to a lot of people more and more by the day, specifically with anxiety-inducing disorders and phobias. So the reason kind of why I chose this topic is I own a virtual reality headset, and I just find it all really interesting and how they're finding different uses for this technology every day. So I'm going to start with just a brief introduction to VR and then go into how it psychologically works within the brain, and then go into how it's used in treatment. So to begin, virtual reality, which will be referenced as VR for pretty much the rest of this speech, was originally thought of as a concept in the 1960s with just like a cardboard box and a screen. Obviously, in the 60s, the technological advancements held the concept back as a functioning idea, and it was kind of set aside until the early 2000s when development started on it again. The first commercial VR headsets hit the market in the early 2010s, and this one, which I have here, was just released last year. As you can see, there's two optical lenses here, and all of this padding rests against your face, so it cuts off any other peripheral vision into the real world. Within the rim here, there's speakers on both sides, which are, used for the hearing from the environment. So that's just a brief example on VR and how it, just what one headset looks like from recent years. So going into how it psychologically works, one of the most compelling factors in virtual reality is being able to experience things that you don't normally get to. It creates completely different stimulations and sensations for the mind and body to experience, which is what everybody wants to do, especially in times like we are in now in quarantine. So the first thing I want to talk about is the concept of immersion. According to an article published on November 28th in 2018 by Rebecca Penn and Michael Hout from Frontiers for Young Minds, immersion refers to how well technology can stimulate the ways we sense and perceive the world in our everyday lives. The most important piece to immersion is understanding how the brain interprets our surroundings and the world around us. This comes through our senses, most importantly sight, hearing, and touch, which are almost always active and are very important in creating a believable experience in VR. A couple more definitions that they use is sensation is the act of transmitting information from the sense organs to the brain, and perception is the brain's interpretation of those senses. So an example that they give, which I really like, is say you call your dog from across the room. We can see the dog running towards you. You can see or you can hear the dog barking, and you can feel the dog brushing up against your skin. All of the sight and the hearing of the barking and everything, that's all senses or sensations. But the whole thing, the total package that the brain puts together is the perception and gives us the experience of the dog. So that's really how the brain works in VR and how it tries to mimic reality to create a believable experience. Now talking about the medical industry for VR, the two main things I want to talk about are anxiety disorders and phobias. But first, I'd like to illustrate how much it's grown over the last decade or so. In an article posted by John Elfline on August 9th of 2019, he analyzes the value of virtual reality in the health market from 2012 to 2017 in the United States. In this article, he includes a chart that depicts that in 2012, the value of virtual reality in the market was only $525 million, as opposed to in 2017, when it spikes to $975 million, almost doubling its value. just over these 5 years, the value of virtual reality in the health market has doubled, and it's shown that it's an extremely effective treatment and use of virtual reality. It only falls second to gaming, of course, which is what it was made for. In an article published by the Harvard Review of Psychiatry in May of 2017, I learned that before virtual reality therapy, exposure therapy was the most effective method of treating anxiety-inducing disorders. The only issue with exposure therapy was that it depended on the patient being able to imagine or visualize certain scenarios that often included the source of their anxiety. Through Harvard's studies, they found that VRT, virtual reality therapy, eliminates all of that dependency on the patient and just provides them with the environment in front of them. This was shown to be a much more effective treatment because not only does the patient not have to imagine anything, but the therapist can directly control what the patient sees, offering the best treatment possible. Treating phobias acts similarly. What happens is they will show the phobia in virtual reality and then try to transition that into the real world. So let's say patient A has arachnophobia, which is the fear of spiders. What they might do is they'll put the headset on and just show a spider like across the room and see how the patient reacts. If they react comfortably, maybe the next scene they'll show the spider like right next to them. And then they'll keep trying and keep doing trials, and eventually they'll get the spider onto the patient. And then from there, they'll try to transition that into the real world where they'll have a real life spider and trying to treat it that way. This isn't guaranteed to be fast and easy, but it's super effective. Obviously, the severity of the anxiety produced will be different from patient to patient, but the procedure is extremely consistent. So, all in all, virtual reality has proven to be an extremely versatile piece of technology today, and undoubtedly one of the best uses for it is in the medical field. It's proven itself as one of the best up-and-coming treatments for anxiety disorders and stress-producing disorders, and it's showing no signs of slowing down. It's being projected to be used almost everywhere for treating these disorders in the next coming years, and it's just really good to see. So let me know what you think about the topic when you're giving me feedback on this speech. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts about it. Thanks.